Hello and welcome to Painting with HMA Gallery. I am an artist slash art teacher at Central Baptist Christian School, and I'm going to be doing a tutorial today for those of you who want to learn how to paint a realistic eyeball using watercolor paints. So we have a couple of supplies with us today. We have our water, obviously. We have our paint set. I'm using the Prang brand, in my opinion. That is one of the best paints on the market, and it will give you a high quality painting in the end. So the types of paint you use do matter, so make sure you have a good high quality paint set before you get started. Have my sheet of watercolor paper here already cut to size, and we are going to get going. So the first thing you do is you need to make sure you have your pencil in hand, and we are going to sketch out the shape of the eyeball. So most human eyeballs are the same general shape, kind of got this teardrop shape to it. So you make your teardrop. Like that, with this little piece on the end, which is the center corner of the eye. This is the right eyeball. When you're looking at someone, it's to the left of their nose. So we're going to draw that. Then down here, we have a little piece underneath. Go ahead and draw that in. That way you don't forget about it later on. And then we're going to sketch another line right here because our eyeball is big and wide, so we have the eyelid up top there. So this is where you should be. Then we are going to draw our iris. Now, it is very important that this is as perfect of a circle as you can get it. Imagine the circle being completed up under the eyeball. If you need to draw that part, go ahead and do that to make sure you get that perfect circle, and you can always erase it up top here later on and leave just this part here that's visible. So once we have that, we're going to go ahead and get started. Oh, I almost forgot, draw in your pupil as well, which is also a perfect circle. If your circles are not perfect and they're a little bit oval or oblong, it will not look right when you get done. Now, one thing I like to do is draw in my glare marks. If you don't have glare marks, it's not going to look right when you get all done. And with watercolor, it is very difficult to pull color out. It can be done, but it's very difficult. So it's important that we leave these sections open before we get started so that we don't forget about them and accidentally put paint where we don't want paint. So we have our glare marks. If you want to do a simple glare mark and just one little dot up here somewhere about the top corner of where the pupil meets the iris, you can do that too. My glare marks are going to be a little more fancy, but you do not have to do that. That's just personal preference. Now, there are a few different paintbrushes that you're going to need. You're going to need your small, skinny paintbrush here with your fine point. You're going to need a small, flat brush, and that's about all you really need. I use a couple of extras. I'll use a little bit bigger fine point, and then I like to use this long round tip as well. It's just personal preference, like I said before. Just as you get used to painting, you find what works for you and what doesn't work as well, and you stick with what works. But for our purposes today, we are going to use just this long skinny brush and this small flat brush. That's all you really need. Okay, now we're going to get started. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to get water on our brush. blend it with pure black. This is pure black that I'm using. And we paint, or I like to paint the pupil first. Remember, we are avoiding those glare marks. You do not want to accidentally paint your glare marks. It makes it a lot harder to fix. So make sure when you're painting, you're very careful and you don't accidentally paint over any of your glare marks. There we go. If it's not coming out super dark for you, you can always add a second coat of black after it dries. But I think that will work right there. All right, the next thing we're gonna do, let's see, decide what color you want your eyeball to be. This is completely, once again, one of those personal preference things. I think I'm going to do a brown eyeball. So if you want to do brown, follow along with me. If you want to do another color, that's completely up to you. So I'm not going to pull brown. There are actually many different color flecks in the eye for any color eyeball that you have. But one color that I'm going to be working with today to get started is yellow. I have kind of this dingy yellow that I'm using here. If it bumps into the black a little bit because it hasn't dried yet, that is okay. So you're going to try to get as close to it as possible without touching it. Try not to touch it. If you bump it a little bit, that's okay, but try not to go over your black. And I'm going to add in yellow. So there's my yellow. Then I'm going to pull in, I really should move my paint to the other side. That's okay. I'm going to pull in some orange. And I'm going to add some orange down here. We're working in layers. The color of the iris that's closest to the pupil is going to be the lightest color. And then as you work your way out, the colors get darker. All right. Add a little bit more orange over here. Notice I'm avoiding my glare marks. Don't forget about that. That's important. Okay. Then we're going to go ahead and pull in some brown. All right. Now, if these colors blend a little bit, that's okay. You kind of want that to be happening anyway because you want those colors to just softly blend into each other so that you have that nice smooth transition in the eye. Now I'm working in a little bit of a zigzag motion. So as you go, you work smoothly around the edge here. If it's easier, you can outline the whole thing first. Then go back and add your zigzag color. Like that. All right. Now, I'm going to dab mine just a little bit because I think I got my brown a little darker than I wanted to. So you can dab if you want while it is still wet. There we go, like that. Excuse me. Then I'm going to come back with just water on a clean brush. I'm going to gently blend that brown down into the orange so I have that nice smooth transition like that. Now I think I'm going to let that alone for now and let it dry. So we are going to work on the outside edges of our eye. In order to do that, I want you to pull black up into your palette and add water to make a nice dark gray. You don't want it to be a light gray, you want it to be a dark gray. I'd say half water, half black paint. And then we're just going to gently outline our eye. Like that. Just carry a nice smooth outline all the way across, like so. Then we're going to outline this little line here, like that. Then we're going to pull a little bit more black into that same color mixture we made with the black and water. I'm going to add a little line here, a little line here, a deeper shadow there. I'm going to pull my line thicker and darker on top. And I'm also going to pull pure black about halfway all the way back to the corner like that. Then we're going to pull darker black down like this as well. There we go. Now the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take my other clean small brush. I'm going to very carefully, with just water, touch the edges of that black line that I painted and pull it down a little bit like this. So we're making just a little bit of a messy gray coming out with our water off of that black line that we made. Like this. You want to do that on the top part as well. You want it to appear a little darker shadow on the top than on the bottom. There we go. All right. Pull a little bit more water out up here. Kind of blend it smoothly so it's not a harsh line. that. All right. Also want to dab a little bit of water in here and let that blend as well. Now, next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to erase this line because it turns out it's not where I want it, and since we haven't added paint yet, you can go ahead and do that. All right. I'm going to add another line starting down here, working my way up and over, following the shape of the line for the eye that we've already made. Then we're going to carefully pull some black, and we're going to very carefully follow that line all the way around above the eye, like that. Now this line is thicker, and that's okay. This is the crease above the eyelid. So now what we're going to do is take water. We're going to blur that line just like we did inside of the eye. We're going to blur that line. Get a little bit more water if your brush gets dry. Don't want to pull paint with a dry brush. It won't work well. Okay, like that. Then we're going to take just a little bit of light gray, paint it just above that line so it's not just a stark black line. You want everything blended nice and smoothly. Okay. Then we're going to pull a little bit of gray underneath, like this, to give it a little bit of color and shadow. Pull a few lines under here, like so. Under our eye. Then we're going to work on the iris color a little bit more. So I'm going to pull some of my brown, water it down just a tad. I'm going to come back through here and add more brown where I took a lot of it out with the dabbing. So there's that. Then we're going to come in and add a little black and brown mixed up here. Top of the iris is always going to be darker because you have that shadow from the eyelid over the top. Okay. We'll let that dry. And then we're going to come back with pure brown Pull a couple of tiny flecks of brown into the eye. Just these little tiny lines like that. I have a couple of coming out from the pupil, almost like sun rays. Like that. Then we're going to take our brown and black color that we made in our palette, blending half brown and half black. We're going to very carefully outline the iris. Like that. Going to come back, bring some of those little tiny lines up away from our edge. Like that. This is really about practice more than anything. The more you work on it, the better you're going to get and the faster you're going to get better. Then we're going to take a little bit of pale orange. I'm going to bring a little bit of pale orange in here just to give it some color. Then bring it over here as well, this corner. Pull it up underneath the lid, like so. Then we're going to pull a little bit of pale watery orange over here as well. Give our eyelid a little bit of color, like that. Now we can't do the eyelashes until our painting is dry. Now I'm going to add a little bit more black up here since my line got blurred very much, just to kind of strengthen that a little bit more. Then we'll add a couple little gray lines up here. Little tiny, tiny gray lines. Like that. Add a little bit more highlight underneath the eye on the edge. Like that. This is obviously going to be a female eyeball. All right. And then you let it set for a moment so that it can start to dry before we add our eyelashes. Now if you want, we can add eyebrows, and to do that I'm just going to take my black, mix with my brown, and while this is drying I'm going to start down here. Just going to start pulling little hairs up. If you need to reload your brush, reload. Make sure you have plenty of paint on there. You just work your way up and out with the eyebrow. These little brushes don't hold a lot of paint, so you're probably going to have to go back and reload quite a few times, but that's okay. Just bring it up and over, and then down. The more little hairs you add, the more realistic it becomes. All right, almost done with that, and by the time we finish this, we should be about ready to add our eyelashes on to finish this up. Right, so there's your eyebrow. Next, we're going to come back and we are going to use our smallest, skinniest brush, roll it gently. I'm going to show you what I'm doing. I'm taking my black and I'm rolling it in the paintbrush in the black to get that straight line, because if you don't have that sharp edge, it's not going to work when you start adding your eyelashes. You just pull your eyelashes one by one. Don't get in a hurry. It's better to take your time and do them right and rush through them. Now, eyelashes do not all have to be even. Some are longer than others, some are shorter than others. Some are crooked, some curve perfectly and beautifully. Some overlap others. Now, we're pulling outward in an upward motion for these lashes on the edge of the eye, but once we get to the center of the eyeball, we're going to change direction. We're not there yet. Right about there at the center of the iris, we start to change direction. So you're going to start bringing them up and over the other way, curving outward. Like that. Down here, we'll put a few lashes as well. Now the ones on the bottom are not as much as the ones on top. You want to just take your time. Just put a few here and there randomly. They're not all in the same direction. That's okay. There we go. All right, and there is your realistic watercolor eyeball. I hope this was helpful. Don't get discouraged if you don't get it the first time. Keep practicing, and good luck and have fun painting.